Good afternoon. My name is Ron Yarnell. You know me. I've been on the show before. I'm guest hosting today because Ed Fallon is not available. He's away for a while. He's here in spirit, though, and we're looking forward to his return. But in the meantime, we're going to have a lot of good stuff. We're going to talk a lot about good stuff. Today, we're going to have a little different conversation than we usually have. We usually talk about politics and things like that. Today we're going to talk a little pop culture. We're going to talk about comic books, why comic books matter, why comic books aren't just funny books anymore. When I was a kid, my mom used to give me $1, and she'd send me across the street after we'd get groceries, and she'd go, get yourself some funny books. And of course, anyone who knows what the price of comics are these days would be astounded that she gave me $1, and I actually wound up getting a stack of comics back in those days. They were 12 cents and 25 cents a piece. We're going to talk about a great upcoming event in the Des Moines area coming October, Icon, which is probably the biggest comic book event for fans in this area. It's sponsored by the Iowa Comic Book Club, and representing the Iowa Comic Book Club, we have in the studio, we have Dean Sturtevant. Thanks, Dean, for being here.
Thank you, Ron. It's an absolute pleasure to be here today, and thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah. I got to tell you the story. Dean was the first person of the Iowa Comic Book Club I ever met. I was in one of the area's comic book clubs. I think it was on Free Comic Book Day or something.
Yeah, it was at Mayhem.
Mayhem. It was at Mayhem Comics up in Urbandale. And I happened to run into Dean there, and he represented himself as a member of the Iowa Comic Book Club. And I mentioned that I was trying to get together with the club. And boy, Dean, you know what? I don't know. We ought to make you the official welcome wagon or something. You really know how to reel people in.
Well, it's all about just my love of people.
Yeah. Dean, what do you think is so terrific about comics? Why are you into comics?
Well, it started when I was about 10 years old. My uncle was really into collecting comic books. He had a lot of them from like the 70s and early 80s and late 60s.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of Fantastic Four, Incredible Hulk, Avengers. And I wanted to kind of have a point of just bonding with my uncle because I really didn't have a large father figure in my life.
Mm-hmm.
So I started collecting comic books. Started in third grade with my teacher, Miss Moorhead, and she gave me my very first comic book, which was Spectacular Spider-Man for Christmas. It was a great time.
Yeah.
And then I started going to my local Dolls and Hy-Vee and buying them. Of course, they don't sell them anymore, except for like the Archies and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But back then, you could buy them at your local grocery store. Yeah. And I just really enjoyed them, and they kind of taught me my first kind of moral lessons about life. Spider-Man taught me about responsibility, and about taking and every action
has consequences.
Yeah. And that that you can decide what you're going to do with your life. Yeah. Captain America taught me about honor and patriotism and being proud of your country.
Mm-hmm.
But and then Thor taught me about sticking up for the little guy.
Mm-hmm.
So and Tony Stark and Iron Man taught me about what not to do in life.
Okay, that's about right there. The interesting thing about comics these days is they're not really kid stuff anymore. They've kind of gone in a certain direction. First of all, they've gone in a certain direction economically. Like I said, when I was a little kid, about the age of my daughter, comic books were like 12 cents a piece, and then you got a giant size for $0.25, and that was like always a big deal. Those days are long gone. Now comics are like $3.99, $4.99, and they're really oriented towards adults. What do you think about that, Dean? Is that a good thing, bad thing?
I think it's a travesty. It's a true disappointment.
Uh-huh.
From where comic books have been, where I kind of grew my love for comics, they've gone down a much more darker path than I want them to have gone.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like there was a trade paperback by DC called Kingdom Come. It talks about the darker side, how the world's gotten more darker. Same way in comic books. It has a lot more adult themes, a lot more violence. The characters have it deals with a lot more darker social issues. Back when I first started reading comic books, the darker social issues were, smoking and guns and drug trafficking, but it was all dealt with in a very PG way of doing things. There wasn't a whole lot of violence and blood, and there was a fine line between a hero and a villain. Fortunately, nowadays you have the very, very thin line between what a hero is and what a villain is.
And sometimes they go back and forth.
They go back and forth.
Like Green Lantern.
Wolverine. Right. Unfortunately, a lot of the heroes that are now portrayed in comic books have gone so far from their origins. It's just I don't recognize them as the heroes I once knew.
I know that I don't know how many folks might be familiar with Kingdom Come, but it's all about how old school heroes, particularly Superman, comes a time when a new generation of heroes emerge. And how can we say this politely? They're somewhat ethically and morally challenged.
Yes. It's beyond ethically and morally challenged. They're twisted, but they are twisted by their society.
Yeah.
Similar with today's youth and today's moral value. Yeah. It's completely twisted by just a sense of we've lost our sense of propriety. We now have our sense of entitlement, which is just choking our society slowly over time. And especially with, like you said, with comic books nowadays, the degradation from the written word, from the printed page now to more digital copies, which have now become more economical to purchase than good old fashioned ink and paper, which I absolutely love. That's what really garnered my love for comics, was the smell of the ink and the feel of the paper, and just flipping the pages and just sitting there on your front porch or in the comic book shop and just flipping through the pages and seeing month after month or bi-weekly, seeing the heroes beat the villains and the world was restored.
If anyone out there, the last time you read a comic book was maybe the 1970s or early 80s, you may have missed some turning points. In the 1980s, two major works came out. One of them was called The Watchmen by Alan Moore, and that presupposed what would superheroes be like in a world more corresponding to the world in which we live in, because comic books used to have all sorts of they were kind of in their own world. They played by their own rules. But what if superheroes had to play by the rules in the world as it is? And that was kind of a major moment in the development of comics. Also, The Dark Knight Returns, which was by Frank Miller. And that was another part of that comics beginning to tack towards a more dark side of things and more corresponding to the corruption of the world. And still today, something like 30 years later, Watchmen and The Dark Knight Returns still probably set the trend. I had that feeling when I read Marvel's Civil War comics. What would the government do if you really had people running around with superpowers? Well, the government would try to get them under control, because you can't have people running around that can wipe out half a city just by going like that. So comic books are not really kid stuff anymore. You just can't bring your 7-year-old, for example, to the comic book store and say, "Oh, here's a few bucks, help yourself." These days you really have to pay attention to what your kid's kind of reading. Either that, or you're going to have a very long explanation, or either that, or they're not going to be interested. That's the other, I think, tragedy of comics in our time. I don't think they're all that terribly interesting if you're of a certain young age. They're just,
Well, the thing I see about comic books is that if you want a young child to get into comic books, introduce them to something that you love and that they would enjoy as well. Like, unfortunately, the kid-oriented comic books are more like Sonic the Hedgehog, Mega Man, Tiny Titans, which is actually a really cute comic book, and Teen Titans Go. They're more based on the cartoons that kids would enjoy. Like I said, a lot of the modern comic books, more rated towards teenagers. Some I would even show most adults.
My daughter, she enjoys superheroes and comics mostly actually through animation, through DVDs. She liked the Spectacular Spider-Man DVD series. She's a big Spider-Man buff. And she likes Superman, although I'm not quite sure. I take her right away to see the latest Superman movie, which I don't want to be put out a spoiler, but let's just say again, there was the issue there of Superman's moral disposition and violence that I wasn't pleased with. And maybe that kind of whoa, what's going on with Superman? On the other hand, I do think that because there is an adult emphasis on comics, they're really kind of enjoyable, even when you're our age. Because they do resonate with a world that we daily experience too, a little bit more than they used to. Dean, what do you like to read? What would you recommend?
I like to read a lot of different genres, a lot of different companies. The ones that have really caught my attention recently, even with the new 52 relaunch and whatnot. I still enjoy Teen Titans because it kind of shows a group of young teenagers kind of just exploring not only the world of the superhero, but just their own lives and their own powers and just kind of figure out how they sit in this world. And then I also enjoy the Fantastic Four, which is the Marvel Now relaunch, where basically the Fantastic Four family, including Franklin and their young daughter Valerie, head off into the cosmos and explore time and space and whatnot. I don't want to spoil anything about the comic book, but it's a great read. I do enjoy it. It's a good family-friendly comic book because of the sheer fact that it involves a family. Yeah. And you get to see the family dynamic not only, and then you also get to see a lot of superpowers. Yeah. Another one I enjoy the kind of on the more indie scale is Invincible, which is sort of like, what if Superman had a kid? And what if Superman was evil? Yeah,
I've started reading Invincible, and it's not your father's comic book.
It is certainly not. It is far away from that. But I like it just for the fact that it actually is very well written, very well done. And then Phil Hester and Todd Nuck actually do the kind of sister comic to the Invincible series called Invincible Universe. Which they were at their icon last year.
Now, non-comic book people might recognize the name Robert Kirkman, who's involved with Invincible. Robert Kirkman, he has big success with The Walking Dead, which has since become a very successful TV series. And so he's a name, he's a creator to be reckoned with these days. If you could recommend any particular title or comic book for the non-comic book person who wants to get a handle on what's it about these days, what do you think you might want to recommend?
Well, what comic books are about this day? I would probably say, kind of give a. The problem with that is that everyone has a different viewpoint on what they like, because there is a comic book for everyone, and for every personality type, for every what you like. If you like romance, there's comic books for you. If you like more action, there's comics for you. If you like a little bit of both, if you like more character development, kind of depends on the artist and the writer. Mostly, a good story can really touch you or can really repel you. But I have to say, Fantastic Four is a great book. Sometimes it can be a little bit heady, but the writing is really good, and the science it's of course super science, which is it's for humor's sake. Don't take it too seriously. But the oldies but a goodie. You can always start picking up Justice League. Unfortunately, like I said, more dark. Usually, I wouldn't recommend it for anyone under the age of 16. So for children, I would say try to pick up more kid-friendly comic books, which are usually separate.
Yeah, go ahead, Dean.
Oh, okay. Which are usually separated at most stores, usually on special racks. They're usually like, oh, here you go, kids. They're usually lowered to the floor. I know Rodman's Comics and Ankeny has one that's lower to the floor. Mayhem usually has theirs separated as well, so the kids can have easy access to them. Yeah. And so they don't come in contact with the comics that might be a bit outside of their age group.
All right. Well, we're going to be back in a couple of minutes with Dean talking more about comics. We're going to be talking about Icon and why, even if you may not be a fanatic about comics, it's a place that you want to be. It's a enjoyable day. It's an enjoyable afternoon. It's a family-oriented event. And would you say a good time will be had by all who come there?
I would most definitely say so.
All right. We're very grateful for our sponsors, and we want to give a shout out to the Sierra Club. And also the Physicians for Social Responsibility. We appreciate Gateway Market. I appreciate Gateway Market every time I go there. I usually wind up going there for breakfast. And I've done this before on the show, but I will brag to no end about their breakfast burrito. It's really pretty good. Also, we want to give a shout out to Story County Vet. If you have a pet who needs attention, that's a place where the pet will get attention. And there's nothing as good as having a happy dog, a happy cat, a happy pet animal. And also, we want to tell you about our good friend Dan Kelly. Dan, he's runs a real estate business, Newton. He's also a DJ. He's also a state legislator. Legislator. Dan is pretty much into everything. So if you need to buy a house, you need to have a party, and you need music. If you have an issue in state government, go to Dan. He'll help you out. And right now we have some more commercials. We'll be back in a couple of minutes.
Remax Real Estate Concept Studios. This is Webcast One Live.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
Well, good morning. This is the 7th of June in the Lord's year 2010, and this is day one of webcast1live.com. We will begin with Max World Live with my special guest, Tom Coates. In just a minute, there's Tom. Wait. Howdy. And we will be live for the very first time on Webcast One Live. Someday we're going to look back on this and say, gosh, remember that old day in history? Wonder where Walter Cronkite was. He must have been around hanging there too. But actually, it's the beginning of Webcast One Live. And thank you for listening. Thanks, Rob Spearman, and everybody who's put together this project together. And we're ready to go live now. So thanks for listening to MaxWorldLive.com.
I can't tell you that it's going real well from time to time, but it is going.
From the Remax Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
And we are back at the Fallon Forum. I'm Ron Yarnell. I'm guest hosting for Ed today. And we're having a pretty good conversation here about comic books, what they're about, how they are an adult form. If you were raised in a generation where comics were kid stuff, where they were funny books, that time's kind of passed. Actually, it's tough these days to find a child-friendly comic, actually, which is unfortunate in many ways. On the other hand, if you're an adult and you want to do some serious reading, often very provocative reading, a lot of provocative commentary about our society and what kind of world we're becoming. Sometimes I think that some things are more, because people don't take comic books as seriously as other media, creators can say things they may not be allowed to say in other venues. So.
Yeah.
I want to get to talking about the big comic book event in the Des Moines area. Happens every year, happens in the fall. It is Icon. And Dean, tell us about Icon. What's Icon about?
The Icon is a phenomenal event where the ICBC gets to...
ICBC being the Iowa Comic Book Club.
Sorry. For those who are not in the know. They get to bring in writers, creators, local artists, vendors. And we have lots of cosplayers, people who are not in costume, people who like to dress up in costume, people who love the genre, love pop culture, are usually always there.
Yeah.
And it's a great time. It's a good time. It's always had by all. It's usually held, like I said, in the fall. This year is October 19th at the...
which is a Saturday.
Yeah, which is a Saturday. It's from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. At the event center attached to Buzzard Billy's, formerly All Play. Now it's a different venue, but it's still the same building. And it should be a lovely time. We have a lot of great guests this year. Oldies but goodies. We have Phil Hester. And our big name this year is Jason Pearson. He did a lot of the cover art for the Suicide Squad, as well as his own book, which is Body Bags. And I've read it, a more late teen adult book, but still very well written, very well drawn. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It's a little bit on the violent side. So again, parents, just be aware of what your kids are reading.
Yeah.
That's the important thing.
Like PG or R stuff again?
PG-13, not quite R, but who knows? Maybe wait 10 years.
So what's the breakdown on Icon? What happens there? For one thing, people come in costume. Now, I know, for example, I hope I get their name right, the 501st Legion show up. Can you talk about them a little bit?
Oh, yeah. They're just Star Wars enthusiasts who, the 501st, they dress up in as Jedi, as Stormtroopers, Sith, Rebel. It's just, they're really, they're really passionate people, which I love passion. I love when you can put yourself into a role and just enjoy it. I love cosplayers in general because it fascinates me. Because I love wearing costumes. I love, being out there. I love enjoying life, and they enjoy what they do.
Yeah.
So I can't praise them enough for what they do, and they're amazing people. And I'm always astounded every year. The Mandalorians come dressed up like if you're not familiar with the Mandalorian, it's Boba Fett from Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
But they always have a great time. We have a lot of other cosplayers. Last year we had tons.
Last year I remember there being 3 Jokers.
Yes,
3 Jokers. There was one fellow. He was kind of a more traditional Joker. And then there was another fellow. He was more of the Heath Ledger, I think, Joker. And then there was another fellow. I thought that was funny. You had 3 Jokers running around, and only 1 Batman, I think, to deal with them.
Well, actually, I think we had 2 Batmans.
Okay,
actually,
all right.
We had a father and daughter who were Batman and Batgirl.
Okay,
of. They were adorable, and then and of course we had the dynamic duo of Spider-Man and Batman.
Yeah. So there's creators who are going to be people in the comic book business. You mentioned some of them. Now, here's, of course, a big question. There are creators from the big companies, and, of course, they're going to have their wares available, and you can bring your stuff, too, and they will sign those things, won't they? I think that's pretty cool. Whether it be regular books or comic books, I always appreciate getting my stuff signed. I always feel like I got some extra value added there. And not only that, but the great thing about Icon, it's not just names from the big companies. There's also a lot of local talent that are there. And people that are fun to get to know, people, creative people, artistic people, and they have stuff there, and a lot of it's great stuff that you might want to check out. You have a lot of merchants, people who run comic book stores. From sometimes they come from some distance. I know a fellow comes down from Mason City. Is it
Mason City? We actually have a few vendors. I know in the past we've had a few vendors that came down from Minnesota, just all around the Midwest.
Yeah. So if you're a comic book guy and you're looking for something that you haven't been able to find maybe in the local stores, come out to Icon and go through the bins, and who knows, it could be there for you. It's like I said, I think that Icon, there's something there for every member of the family.
Oh, truly.
I know that my wife, who's not particularly a comic book person, she enjoys going. She's now dressing as Supergirl. She got herself a Supergirl costume, and she enjoys doing that. My daughter, in the last year, she's become this big Harry Potter person, and
nice.
So she comes as Hermione Granger. She has a Hermione cape, a Hogwarts cape, and a wand, and so she enjoys dressing up as that. So there's also panel discussions going on. Which for people with a little bit more intellectual bent, if you want to get into the meaning of comics, you can go to those. I think one thing that happens at some point at Icon, there's a group picture of everyone who's in costume, isn't there?
There's usually the cosplay parade, the group picture. Like I said, a lot of people who come in costume, they usually have wonderful characters that they're either portraying either from comic books. We've had a few in the past that have just been original creations. We've had Kitty, who was at last year's Icon, and he was a zombie-killing cyborg with the brain of a cat. And then we have Bob Baghead, who was kind of an original character who's from here in Des Moines. Just I love the creativity in these people, and I love the vision, and just it's amazing to me. And they're from all walks of life, just all venues, and they just want to have fun.
Yeah, one thing about comic book fans, they don't readily fall into maybe a geeky, nerdy, the Big Bang Theory kind of stereotype.
No, they don't.
They come from all kinds of walks of life. There is kind of sometimes those kind of Big Bang Theory characters running around, but you also got basically family people with mortgages and responsibility, and this is what they do to blow off some steam, to have a good time in life.
One thing we were discussing earlier with the economic issue with comic books, you have all walks of life. When I first started collecting comic books, they were $1.75,
Mm-hmm.
and they've quickly changed, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, comic book fans are very dedicated, and if they love you, they will love you, and if they hate you, you're done. And that's what I think.
Let's go for love, okay?
Yeah. Well, I usually see the rise and fall of comic books based on the fan base.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, a lot of times, especially in this time, in this day and age, that's why they've gone to digital comic books, because they're cheaper to produce, and easier for the fans to get hold of, especially with all this technology we've had with iPads and with different all of our different technologies. And it's exciting to see the people who get, who are into comic books, and you come to the Icon and you see all different types of people. You see, young and old, and we're all there having a great time. I've had some of the best political, philosophical discussions with comic book fans.
All right.
And they're very passionate about their characters.
Yeah. Dean, how much does it cost to gain entry into Icon?
Well, I believe it's
not a lot.
No, not a lot.
It's very budget
children
friendly.
are usually free. Children under 12, accompanied by a parent, a paid adult, is usually, I think it's between $5 and $7. I'm not sure offhand, but it's usually really inexpensive, and it's a great afternoon. There's usually lots of free stuff for the kids, lots of free stuff for adults. You get to see, it's just a great afternoon.
Yeah.
The first time I ever went to the Icon, it was this was back in 2009. I think this is when I became a member of the ICBC.
Yeah.
I was very excited about it because it was at the Iowa State Fair. And it was the first time I'd ever been to a convention at all. And I saw it advertised in the local juice. And then we went there and had a great time. So.
Okay. And so again, Icon is Saturday, October 19th. It is between the hours of 10 a.m.
and 5 p.m.
And 5 p.m. And the entry is very budget friendly, maybe $5 to $7. If you bring your children under 12 are free. If you want to dress up as a character, you are invited to dress up, and you can still have a good time even if you choose to come without costume. Everyone has a good time at Icon. Right now, we need to make another shout out, and we're going to shout out to the Immigrant Entrepreneur Seminar, which is coming up, which looks to be an exciting event. Please be aware of that. And I believe there is a tag or a banner on the Fallon Forum website where you can get more information. Also, if you're hungry, and I'm getting hungry because it's noon hour, there is Tally's Restaurant and Hawk's Restaurant, two fine local eateries. I know that, for example, Hawk uses only locally grown food, so that's a big thing there. Seek those persons out if you're on lunch or anytime just to have a good meal. We'll be back in a few minutes with more talk about Icon 2013. Also going to talk a little bit about what the Iowa Comic Book Club is about, and also what's up with all these movies on comic books, on themes, on superheroes. Is that just the way things are now? Because that seems to be the largest outlet for comic books. Hollywood has decided that comic books are big money. We'll see you in a couple of minutes.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershad.
I'm administrative manager
I am the senior technician.
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, you know, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be, it's your home.
You know, it's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're gonna do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's going to be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're going to do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed rider it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you gonna say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're gonna be listening. They're gonna wanna know what your challenges are. Then they're gonna come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you know, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me, but is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though, I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm going to take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Yeah, a little lounge music in the afternoon to ease us in. I want to acknowledge some more of our great sponsors, great restaurants. They include Sergeant's Restaurant and also Fighting Burrito, which just has a great name. I don't know if they actually stage brawls between burritos, but you can go down there and you can ask, and if while you're down there, you can try their burrito and have a good time there. Again, the Immigrant Entrepreneur Summit. You can get more information on that probably if you go to the Fallon Forum website and check out the banner. And also, if you have a wedding event coming up in your family, if you're getting married, if you know someone's getting married, you're looking around, you're shopping around for someone to prepare a wedding cake, you might want to check into Diana's Wedding Cakes. And Diana will be glad to help you out and make your wedding event a success. Okay. The Iowa Comic Book Club.
Yes.
Which is, and I do need to tell everyone in the interest of full disclosure, I'm a member of the Iowa Comic Book Club, and it's a great organization. It's all about comic books and also related pop culture events. Tell us more about it, Dean. What do you like about the Iowa Comic Book Club?
Well, I like it because it's a place of like-minded people to just get together, talk, discuss topics that go from politics and comic books to social issues to movies to just having a great time with each other. We usually do different social events, movie outings, of course, the mini-con, which was back in June, and then, of course, the Icon came up in October 19th, which is a Saturday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. And, we just have a great time. I've been with the club, I think, since 2009, I believe. And I've been a cabinet member for 2 years. Of those, and it's been a lovely time.
Give me the where, whens, and wherefore. Where does the Iowa Comic Book Club meet?
Usually, we meet at the Urbandale Public Library, usually on a Sunday. Usually it's the third or fourth Sunday of the month. All the dates can be found on the Iowa Comic Book Club website.
Okay.
So if you're curious about meeting times or locations, you can go ahead and check the website. And usually we meet there. Usually we meet in one of the back meeting rooms and whatnot. And it's usually a great time. It's a very casual meeting. And if you aren't a member, you're always welcome to join us. All are welcome. We have plenty of room. There's always extra chairs.
I've noticed one thing about the club that there's a little bit of a father-son element. There are people who come with their children and they enjoy events. And sometimes, not so much at club meetings lately, although I haven't, because of business obligations, haven't been able to attend the last several meetings. HeroClix was a big part of meetings a while ago.
Yeah, it was a big part of the last two icons as well.
Yeah.
This year, I hope it will continue, and maybe in a smaller scale, but it will continue as well.
I'm sure there are folks who don't know what HeroClix are about. So can you give us a brief description?
I can give you a very brief description. It's essentially chess with superheroes or Risk. Essentially, you have collectible pieces that are usually superheroes, villains, mix and match, and you assemble a team based on different point values and whatnot. There's a lot of different venues around Des Moines that actually you can play HeroClix at. If you if you want to know what they are, if you want to kind of get into them, if you're curious about them, I know Mayhem on University in West Des Moines plays on Wednesday nights. We have Rodman's Comics in Ankeny, right there on Ankeny Boulevard. They play on Fridays and Saturdays, sometimes Sundays. And we have Jay's CD and Hobby, which is over on the south side of Des Moines, and they play on Mondays and Fridays.
So HeroClix are really everywhere, is what you're saying.
It's really grown from a small group of people, a small venue, to citywide, and even countrywide.
Yeah. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, Dean. We have,
go ahead.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, there are 4 good comic book stores in the Des Moines Metro. There's Mayhem Comics, West Des Moines, Urbandale. Don't they fall in that kind of gray area there?
Yeah, it's Clive.
Okay. Okay, Clive. We have Jay's on the south side. We have Couple Kryptonite, which has actually more of a, it's a comic book store, but it's also a coffee shop kind of operation.
It's not really a coffee shop per se. They do serve coffee there. Because of city politics, they can't serve coffee there, but they do have coffee free for customers.
Okay, so you can get a cup of coffee there.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Get a cup of coffee, enjoy your comic books, and have a lovely time. And then there's, of course, Rodman's Comics in Ankeny as well.
I was going to mention, Rodman and Ankeny. They're all great in their way. They all cater in a certain different direction from each other. It makes them all kind of complementary, actually, I think.
I enjoy them all.
Yeah.
I've been to all of them. They all have a little bit of everything. And it's a great place for just to kind of sit down and, if you're not in the comic book venue yet, it's a great place to just go and, try to find something you're into.
I know that, I appreciate Jay's because they got such a huge inventory of action figures and things like that. And Mayhem I like to go to. And when I go to Mayhem, I tell my daughter, she's 8 years old, she wants to come along. She knows there's a pack of Pokemon cards in there for her, so she wants to go to that. I like Couple Kryptonite. Sometimes it's a smaller store, but I like it because you can see stuff that you may have not noticed before, and when there's like so much other inventory. And there was this one book I'm getting into, Massive. Have you heard of it? It's kind of an independent.
No, I haven't.
It's an environmental apocalyptic kind of story. And then there's Rodman's up in Ankeny, and I enjoy going up there. I think that HeroClix really sticks out for me at Rodman's because they're prominently in display there. And
true, and I think it's more of a new player-friendly venue. Although they all have, they're all player-friendly, and you can probably get in on any venue and just have a great time, especially if you're trying to learn how to play.
Yeah. So, Dean, what exactly? How does an Iowa Comic Book Club a meeting break down? I know there's a little business goes on, but then there's also kind of the topic of the month kind of deal, isn't there?
Yeah. Usually we all meet. Usually between 2 p.m. and 5 p.m. Usually 1 p.m. give or take, depends when everyone shows up. Usually there's company business. If you're a member of the club, which is usually if you want to become a member of the club, it's only $10 for the year. And for that, you get in every ICBC event, you get in for free. So the Icon, the Minicon, whatnot. And usually we sit down, discuss some business here and there. If we have to have a club vote, we do that if we have enough members in attendance. And then usually it's the topic of the day, which can run from, favorite superhero movie, discussing the current superhero storylines, and how they relate to current politics, social environments, and so on and so forth. It's actually very, very interesting. The first time I went to a meeting, like you said before, we have an interesting dynamic. You have fathers and sons, you have husbands and wives, just kind of all kind of being there and kind of sharing this experience together.
All right. We need to take another break, and then when we get back, we're going to be talking about how Hollywood has dived into comic books big time. In fact, sometimes you wonder, are there other movies that don't have superhero themes anymore? So we'll be talking about that in a couple of minutes. It's great day today to be in the studio. We have Dean Sturdivant, and of course I'm Ron Yarnell, and this is Fallon Forum. Ed's out of the studio for a while. He'll be back eventually. And right now, let's hear some important information.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
Well, good morning. This is the 7th of June in the Lord's year 2010, and this is day uno, one of webcast1live.com. We will begin with Max World Live with my special guest, Tom Coates. In just a minute, there's Tom. Wait. Howdy. And we will be live for the very first time on Webcast One Live. Someday we're going to look back on this and say, gosh, remember that old day in history? Wonder where Walter Cronkite was. He must have been around hanging there too. But actually, it's the beginning of Webcast One Live. And thank you for listening. Thanks, Rob Spearman, and everybody who's put together this project together. And we're ready to go live now. So thanks for listening to MaxWorldLive.com.
I can't tell you that it's going real well from time to time, but it is going.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Good afternoon. My name is Ron Yarnell. I'm guest hosting today at the Fallon Forum, and we're having a real good show talking about comic books, talking about why they matter, talking about why they are for adults these days, which has a good side and a bad side, talking about probably the biggest comic book event in the Des Moines metro area, Icon, which is on October 19th at, tell me again, where's that?
Oh, it's at the event center attached to Buzzard Billy's downtown over by the Wells Fargo Arena.
Okay. Dean Sturdivant is here. Dean is a member of the Iowa Comic Book Club, and he's involved with Icon. You'll see him at Icon.
You most certainly will. Me and my megaphone.
Okay, he has the megaphone function there. So it's a great event. It's a family event. It's budget friendly. To get in for an adult is maybe $5, $6, or $7, something like that. Not a lot. And if you have kids and you want to provide your kids with an afternoon of quality entertainment, because they get to see all kinds of interesting things, including Imperial Stormtroopers, including the Joker, including Spider-Man. They will all be at Icon. A lot of folks like to come down and dress up in costumes. So that's coming up October 19th, a Saturday. In our closing segment, what I want to talk about a little is about how Hollywood, the movie business, has latched onto comic book themes big time. In fact, most folks are probably more likely to encounter Superman or Batman or the X-Men in the movie theater than they are on the local newsstand anymore. What's up with that, Dean?
Well, well, for many, many years, the idea of a superhero movie was usually put on the back shelf by Hollywood. But currently, in these past, past many, many years, past maybe 10 years, there's been a boom in the movie industry to release comic book themed movies based on different franchises. And it's just been a huge drive because studios know they make lots of money, and it definitely showcases a lovely array of characters. Now, some are well done, some not so much. And some, like a lot of comic book fans, there's some controversy or lots of active opinions. Maybe not
Comic book fans have opinions, don't
they have a lot of opinions. Like I said, if they love you, they love you. If they hate you, you're done. And that's with a lot of franchises. But currently, DC has been releasing some wonderful animated films, and which I've really loved.
Yeah.
They've done the Batman movies. Currently this year, earlier this year, they did the Man of Steel, lovely movie, 3/4. Again, there's one issue I have with the movie.
Yeah.
As a comic book fan, knowing the original origins of the character, I had a bit of a qualm with. But beyond that, Marvel's been releasing a lot of wonderful films. What was it, in November? Thor's coming out.
The Disney company bought Marvel.
Yeah, Disney, Marvel.
And so, and Marvel was building up a movie assembly line anyway, churning out one movie after another. But now with Disney, they're really going full throttle at churning out movies.
Oh, that and TV shows and so on and so forth. It's definitely been interesting. As a comic book fan, it's been a very interesting, time in history.
Yeah.
Because I know back when I was younger, all these companies had all these visions for different movies that never saw the light of day.
This past summer, a bunch of comic movies came out, comic book themed movies. Anyone particularly stand out for you? Anyone you would particularly recommend?
I would recommend for the 3/4 venue, I'd recommend Man of Steel. Okay. It was a wonderful film. It's very well done. The actors were dynamic. The characterization of a real world event where Superman would exist was very, very interesting for a comic book fan, even for the general audience. They found it, very interesting.
Yeah. You have any opinion about Ben Affleck, excuse me. He's being cast as Batman. You have any opinion on that?
My only opinion is, as long as it doesn't involve Joel Schumacher, I'm fine.
Okay. You know what? I remember years ago when there was a lot of negative opinion in fandom about Michael Keaton being cast as Batman when that first movie was made. I'm thinking about Ben Affleck, and I think actually he would make a pretty good Bruce Wayne character, kind of a layabout, billionaire, doesn't do much, has that kind of reputation that he plays off so no one will suspect him of being Batman. And, once they put the cowl on a character, what's the difference anyway? They just become someone else anyway. So I'm interested to see how that will work out for Ben Affleck. He was, some years ago, he did play Daredevil, a Marvel character. Some people didn't like the movie. I was okay with it. I don't know,
Yeah, I really didn't have a problem with it. It was a very interesting kind of revision for the character.
Mm-hmm.
Usually I can kind of take it or leave it. Some movies, though, I'm like, really? Did you have to make that? Did you have to go that way? But again, being from a comic book, fan, level, I try to just watch movies and try to just to enjoy them. And but there are some movies that I can just cheer on and really enjoy, like Captain America, Thor, the new Amazing Spider-Man movie that came out. I think was it last year?
Yeah,
it was a great movie, a great kind of re-envisioning for the character in the franchise.
Of all the movies that have come out in recent years, if you could pick one movie for the non-comic book person that you think would represent the genre, the culture well, what would it be?
Probably Avengers.
Yeah.
I have a friend of mine who's anti-comic book. She doesn't like comic books. But she's like, I saw the Avengers. And
you have a friend who's anti-comic book?
I do.
You are broad-minded.
I am very broad-minded. I am very, I love all people. But yeah, she is not a comic book fan by a stretch of the imagination. Her husband, Spider-Man fan, God bless him. But yeah, she saw the Avengers. She goes, and you know what, Dean? I loved it. I'm like, awesome.
All right. I want to give another shout out to the sponsors of Fallon Forum, those good folks that make sure that this show happens. They include Gateway Market, Story County Vet, Hawk Restaurant, Fighting Burrito, Ritual Cafe we haven't mentioned yet. They're certainly great folks, a great place to hang out, great place to meet other people. If you have issues with your finances, with taxes, maybe you want to check in with Community CPA. And if you have need of a real estate matter, if you want to sell or buy a home or property, you might want to give Dan Kelly a call. Also, if you're having a party, you need a DJ, he's the man to spin the tunes. And if you have an issue in government, he wears all kinds of hats. You can give Dan a call if he's your representative, because he's a state representative. Want to give one more plug to Icon. Want to make sure everyone knows what it's about, where it's at. So Icon is the major comic book convention in the Des Moines Metro, in Iowa probably. I don't know. Is there any other big convention in Iowa?
Well, comic book venues, I think that's the only convention.
Yeah. Folks often come from far away. They come from Minnesota. They come from Illinois, I've noticed. It is on October 19th. Icon. It is Saturday. It is Buzzard Billy's.
The event center attached to Buzzard Billy's.
Right.
Over by Wells Fargo Arena. It's October 19th from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Anyone with issues is welcome.
Okay. That's the motto of the Iowa Comic Book Club.
We all have issues.
We all have issues. And there's a nominal entrance fee. Don't hold us to it, but it's $5, $6, $7 for adults and kids. Under 12, they come free. So if you want to entertain your kids, take them to the Icon on October 19th. Great place to be. I want to, at this point, thank Dean for coming in. Thanks
Thank you,
for
Ron.
talking about comics and talking about Icon and Iowa Comic Book Club. As a member, I will also join Dean in inviting anyone who has an interest in comics to check out the club. There's a website. There's also a Facebook page. The club meets third or fourth Sunday of the month, usually at the Urbandale Library. You can bring snacks, okay? You can bring something to drink, something to munch on during the meeting, which I've always found pretty cool. I want to thank again the sponsors of the Fallon Forum. Ed, if you're checking in, seeing how your show's going, seeing how it's your livelihood, I think it's going pretty well. We're holding on the fort, and we look forward, however, to you getting back here as soon as possible. I want to thank the producer of Fallon Forum, Maddie Kane. Thanks, Maddie, for holding down the electronic fort as usual. And I wish everyone a good day.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.